Hello, good morning, guys. Today I just want to start off the video a little bit differently than normal. Start off with some breakfast. Made myself a nice breakfast pizza with eggs, tomatoes, and some vegan cheese on top. Vegan cheese didn't really melt the way I would have liked it to. I tried it last night with asparagus, like garlic butter asparagus, and it came out really good. But I also did mix in a Kraft single, so I think that kind of helped. But today, in this video, just to dive right in, I wanted to get more into the changes that have been happening in my life over the past year. Mainly in this video, changing from doing gig work full time and moving into working for a company full time and doing gig work part time. So, this is just the start of kind of a rebrand for my channel. And also, I just wanted to give you guys some more insight into the things that I've been doing outside of gig work and all of the things that have been going on in my life. So, this change wasn't really something that I wanted to do, but there are a lot of circumstances in my life that I'll go through that made it so I had to make this decision and go back to working a full time job. So, I guess first, let's just go through the backstory, and this will be a little bit more casual. I'll have some seltzer water, eat my breakfast at the same time, and just go through everything that I wanted to discuss in this video. So, about the end of 2021, it had been about a year that I had been fully reliant on gig work. One day I was out delivering. I parked my car down in Syracuse. I was living in Oswego, New York. But I parked my car at a Walmart store. I was waiting for an order and I turned my car off. Went inside the store to go grab some food or something while I waited. And then when I came back out to my car after accepting an order, I went to turn my car on and it just did that click, 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 click thing where the battery is completely dead. So I tried my car again and the same thing happened. So I decided to run into Walmart, grab one of those portable jumper kits, and I jumped my car and then I decided to go home for the day. Then a ton of car problems started to happen. On my drive home, my car dashboard lights started flickering like crazy. My power steering started to go, so it was like really hard to turn at all. And then every once in a while, as I was driving, my steering wheel would just go like that really quickly. So I had to drive really slowly home. I was about an hour away from my home, so it was a pretty terrible time driving back. By the time I made it back home, my car gas pedal wasn't even responding for me that much. It was like kind of stopping and going. And I had to stop once on the highway and jump my car because my car just completely shut off while I was driving, which I didn't know was a thing. If the engine was running, that your car could just shut off and die on you. So I started to think that I was having an alternator problem. But eventually I did make it home. Once I parked my car in the driveway, it wouldn't start back up, so the battery didn't charge at all. So I knew it was either my alternator or my battery. I went and I bought a new battery, changed it out because the battery was all sorts of corroded and it had blue salts all over one of the nodes. And once I switched out the battery, my car still wouldn't drive for more than 2 minutes without it starting to have these same types of problems. So essentially, my car was probably totaled because it really wasn't worth that much. It was pretty much a lemon. I really had problem after problem with this Hyundai Elantra. Back when I was in college, the brake lines just blew one morning. I think that maybe my front brakes blew or my back brakes blew. I had a little bit of stopping power, but my brake lines blew and it was like really hard to stop. My brake pedal would go all the way to the floor. And then when I came back about a couple of months into the pandemic, around like November, December of 2020, somebody came and with like a metal grinder, cut the catalytic converter out of my car, fucked up my exhaust. I'll have to throw up pictures of that. The mechanic lifted up my car. He's like, "Do you see what's wrong here?" And I'm like, "No, you're the mechanic. You should know what's wrong." And he's like, "There's like that missing." And so, yeah, somebody cut the catalytic converter out of my car because that's apparently what some guy was doing in Rome at the time. And yeah, I took the car to a mechanic. I wasn't able to figure out what was wrong with the car. My check engine light had been already on for like 8 months before this. It barely passed inspection. Like, thankfully, it passed inspection before the check engine light came on. And then, like, 2 weeks after the inspection was said and done, my check engine light came on. And I took it to AutoZone so that way they could check the codes. And It gave them a list of like 20 different codes, and it was going to be like $5,000+ to fix. So there was really no reason to continue with this like car that I got for like $3,000 that is probably going to die anyways because it's already over 150,000 miles. After all these problems that I had been having with this car all the time, I figured that it was time to just sell the car. I sold it to a company that gave me like an online quote. And then I started to look into other cars that I could get, and I could try to finance a car because I didn't have any money saved to either be able to fix the car or to buy a new car. And also, because my car was broken, I wasn't able to work for over a month. I really tried to get financed for another car, but my credit was so shitty because of everything from the pandemic, losing my job in the pandemic, all of that. That's why I went into gig work. And yeah, I just wasn't able to do anything and felt really stuck, really screwed at the time, and had no idea what to do to make money to be able to pay my bills so my credit wouldn't continue to decrease and get worse. So all I knew at this time is that I had to start to look for other options to make money. I started to look around for more options to make money online since that was realistically the only thing that I could do. I was living in Oswego, New York at the time. I lived quite far from like any businesses, and there wasn't really any jobs there for me that everything paid like $12 an hour, which wouldn't even cover my bills even if I worked like 50 hours a week. So I did end up applying to a couple of jobs. One company, the only company that I heard back from, denied me 8 months later when I already moved out of Oswego and I was living in Syracuse. And I had already got this full-time job. So in my research at this time, trying to figure out online ways to make money or how to get like a remote job, I found all of these different online courses that said that they could train you and get you job ready in a month. But I thought that they were kind of scammy, so I was kind of scared to do it, and I decided not to do it. At this time, I ended up applying to be an Instacart in-store shopper. You can check out that video. I found out first off that it would make it so I was ineligible to be a full-service shopper and do the shopping and delivery. I could only do the in-store shopping, and I would be limited to being paid only $15 an hour, and I wouldn't be working 40 hours a week. I'd be making way less than $30,000 a year. Unfortunately, that's not enough to cover my bills, my student loan payments. My credit score would continue to decline, so I just continued to search for cars, and I finally found one around sometime in November of 2021. I pretty much jumped on that as quick as I could. It was a Mazda 3 that I found that only had 16,000 miles on it. It was 2 years old. It's a 2018, maybe 2019, I'm not really sure, but it was 2 years old. It was leased by somebody that they only drove 8,000 miles each year, and then they returned the car and got a different car. So the company already made their money off the car, so they were selling it for 16,000 instead of, it should have been like 30,000. I saw other cars that had like 80,000 miles, and they were still selling those for like $30,000. So I kind of thought there was something wrong with the car. I went and checked it out as quick as I could. I went and I applied for financing through the car dealership, which is a complete scam. Don't ever do it through a car dealership. They wanted so much APR or APY, I'm not really sure which one, but they wanted so much interest on it. It was like, I think 13 or 16%, which is crazy for a car. I ended up finding a way to get financed through a bank. And yeah, I ended up getting that car, and then I started to have a car payment every single month that was on top of my bills. So now I had one more thing to worry about. So because of that additional bill, I had to start working like crazy to catch up and start to try to pay down my debt. That way I could get rid of some of them and then snowball the money into other debts to try to get out of debt faster, because all the payments together was like $3,000 a month. So it was really hard to get out of. At this time, I started to go back to working 10+ hour days. And even with this, I was barely making enough money to pay everything that I needed to pay. Oswego, New York, even though it is a very small city, I guess, it might be a town, it sucked for Instacart. It was very sporadic. And then Walmart Spark wasn't that much better either. It wasn't even enabled inside of Oswego at the time that I lived there until about like 2 weeks before I left. So I would have to drive down to Fulton, New York, But usually I would take the hour and 15-minute drive to go down to Syracuse, and I would sit down in Syracuse all day. I'd get up in the morning, close to the brink of dawn, and then I would drive down to Syracuse and stay there because there's tons of Instacart orders and there's tons of Walmart Spark orders. I ended up finding a place in Syracuse that I really liked, and I always stayed at that Walmart store because it was like the rich people area of town, and there was a lot of elderly people. So the orders weren't very heavy, not too many cases of water and stuff like that, usually just like food items. And they did tip well, and it would usually only be a couple of miles, like 5 to 10 miles to drive. So I was able to drive that distance fairly quickly, get an order or two an hour, using the airplane mode trick. I would stay there until it was getting close to sundown. I don't really like driving at night, so I would end up driving back home and get home a little bit past sundown. So I'd essentially spend like 10 plus hours in my car every single day. And this was in late December or January of 2022 when this was going on. And because of that, I was either sitting in my car freezing, or I was sitting in my car using a ton of gas to keep the heat on, to keep warm while waiting for orders. Gas prices were crazy at the time too. I think it was like $3.50 a gallon, something like that, maybe $4. This was really starting to eat into the amount of money that I was making. So while I did have some free time, I always had my computer with me making YouTube videos while I was out doing gig work. I started to look into those online trainings again, so that way I could get a sales job working in the tech sector. Eventually, I found SV Academy, and I ended up talking to somebody that went through it already. They said that I would make at least $50,000 a year, with most people making $70,000, and it's not capped at $70,000 because it is commission based, so there is unlimited earning potential. So I thought that this was going to be a really great option for me, and I decided to apply for the program. The person that was supposed to interview me for the program ended up never showing up for that phone call. It might have been a video call, I'm not sure, but she never ended up showing up. So I did kind of feel like this wasn't the thing for me, or like this is the universe telling me like, no, don't do this because it's not going to be for you. Just like continue to stick with gig work and it'll pay off. I ended up just applying again, and I got another interview. I ended up talking with somebody different, and the interview just went really, really great. It was really easy to go through. They just like asked basic questions like my past work history. About a week or two after that interview, I was accepted to start the program. So in that week or two, I worked my ass off because I knew that at least one of the weeks I wasn't going to be able to work as much as I need to for gig work to make that money that I need to pay my bills. So I just tried to go into overdrive and worked really late, even worked late at night, and just kind of got prepared for the classes to start. Once the classes started, I spent the first couple of days just kind of getting a feel for it, trying to see how much effort and how much time I was going to have to spend on these classes or during the day. That way I could figure out if I was able to do gig work after I was done with this. There were two different options for this program. There was a 1 month program, which is full-time, or a 2 month program, which is part-time. So I opted to do the full-time program. That way I could get into it and get it over with and start making the money sooner. I ended up finding out that the course load, it really wasn't a lot. It was nothing like college. There wasn't like all of these assignments that I had to do and spend like hours researching or learning to be able to complete. Also, the virtual classes that I had to attend every day on Zoom, I figured out that I could just put a background and then I could go sit in my car and I could use that background and nobody would know that I'm sitting in my car. They wouldn't be able to tell. So I could go out in the morning, do gig work. When I had a class, I could just stop at the Walmart parking lot and just sit there and do my class for like the hour or two. And then I could go right back to doing gig work and then work until it was nighttime. And then once it was nighttime, I could just do all of the coursework that I needed to do. If you guys want more information about this course I went through, if you are interested in doing something similar, I can make a full video about that. The next video that I'm going to make after this is going to be a more in-depth video about what my current job is and what I do. But if you do want to know about that program, I could definitely do that, so that way you guys can get a feel for it. You can understand like all of the things that go into the program, so that way you can feel better prepared for it. If you are in a similar position now as I was back when I decided to go into the program. So after I completed the program, essentially graduated the program, I didn't get a job immediately after finishing the program. I did start interviewing for jobs before I finished the program because they knew I was going to finish it. But it took me about 1 month after I finished to be able to find the job that I'm still currently working. I had at least 5 and probably at most like 8 interviews with different companies. Some of them had like 2 rounds of interviews, some of them had 3 rounds of interviews. One of them made me do a project, and then once I did the project, they told me that I'm not the person that they're looking for, like create a PowerPoint presentation for them. A lot of the interviews that I went to, I ended up finding out in either the second interview that they wanted me to work in the office. So I started asking that in the first interview. That way I could just like be like, no, dude, I don't want this job if you're gonna force me to go to an office. I'm only doing remote work because I want to be able to work from wherever I want. Like, I just recently moved from New York to Denver. I would have never been able to do that if I had to work in an office. So I like that flexibility in my life. So while I was interviewing, that was the time that I moved from Oswego down to Syracuse. I moved to the area that I loved the most for Walmart Spark. That way I was about 10 minutes away from that Walmart. I started doing Spark as much as I could every single day. And then I would just go home if I had an interview, do the like 15-minute interview, and then go back out to work. Just trying to make as much money as possible and trying to use my time as efficiently as possible. This helped save me over 2 hours a day that I would have normally been driving to move there, even though I was paying a little bit more for rent. It ended up making me more money than I was losing because I didn't have to drive as far. So I wasn't spending all of that gas, spending that time. I was able to make like $40 extra a day on average and didn't have to spend that like $10 in gas every single day. So it really helped out. I did have a bunch more interviews with companies that really didn't seem like a good fit. I either didn't like the product I was going to be selling, I didn't like understand the product I was going to be selling. There was like banking stuff I really didn't understand. Also applied for some companies, everything went good, and then they just like ghosted me. They never even told me like, we're not going to accept you or give you an offer letter. So those companies were really shady. But eventually I found a job that really fit to my background of going to school to become a chemist. Product that I sell now is really, really cool. It helps a lot of people. It's really great for education as well as professionals. So there's a huge market. And the company culture is like so great. It's one of the best company cultures that I've ever encountered. I ended up interviewing with this company, interviewing with my manager, and then interviewing with the VP of sales. After that interview, I was offered a job. I ended up accepting it. And then I was set to start working for that company about 3 weeks after that date that I accepted the offer. Since then, I've been, sitting here every single day, working on my computer, second screen, calling people every day, taking calls every day. I worked in Syracuse for a while until I moved here. I was able to take some time off to come here, and it was paid time off, so I got essentially paid the same rate to move here, which is great. I didn't have to worry about losing out extra money while I drove those 3 days here. If I need to, then I can do gig work at night. I could even take the option of taking time off and then like paid time off and then doing gig work and making even more money. I haven't done that yet. I've just been saving up my vacation. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to leave them below. I'll get back to them as soon as I can. I know that this was a really long video. If you're still here, give me a comment saying finished or something like that. That way I know that you watched all the way through. If you did like this video, please give the video a thumbs up. Also, let me know in the comments if you liked it. I think that I'm going to start to change my content quite a bit, although I will keep doing some gig work content. I do want to kind of move in some new directions and explore the other things that are a part of my life. That way you guys know about those as well. But yeah, I feel like I've been talking forever. I'm going to finish my pizza since it's been about 31 minutes. I think it's cold at this point, but I'm gonna finish my breakfast, get to editing this video. That way I can get it out to you guys sooner. Tons of exciting things are coming soon, so if you're not subscribed, then hit subscribe to stay tuned for all of this new and exciting things that'll be coming up. I'm really excited to be able to do this and be able to share more of my life with you guys. So thanks for being there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I will see you guys very soon in the next video. Bye.